So snow for runners can pose a lot of problems, and it's really not just snow, it's the winter as a whole. So the first thing that you have to watch out for is just kind of cold temperatures. I mean, anybody that transitions from 70-degree indoor weather or running outside and all of a sudden goes out and it's 12 degrees, 15 degrees, it's going to play a much different toll on the body. So one of the things we have to do is make sure we kind of dress appropriately and you prepare yourself well for it. One of the other things you have to watch out for is kind of snow, ice, anything like that that could change the surface that you're running on. So any kind of change in surface sets anybody up for any kind of injury. It could be a slippery surface that you could fall on, or just kind of running in snow that could make your kind of feet wet and propose any kind of injury there as well. Some of the best ways to kind of dress in the winter is layering. I mean, when you step out the door, you go from a 70-degree temperature to maybe 20 degrees. At first, you're probably going to be a little bit chilly, but you get a mile into maybe a 5-mile run, you're going to start to warm up pretty quickly. So one of the things you need to be ready for is to say, hey, if I needed to take something off, could I? Don't head out the door with one big puffy jacket on and all of a sudden find yourself overheated and no ability to kind of take that off. So multiple layers is a really important kind of thing, and then the fabrics that you wear really play into that. So any kind of cotton fabric or something that's really soft might feel great, but once it gets wet, it's not going to dry. So using things such as polyester blends or a light kind of merino wool or something like that that would take some of that saturation and kind of dissipate it, get it away from your body, tends to work really well. There's a lot of different running shoes that you could wear in the winter. I think first step, it really depends on what you're running on. If it's a cold day that the roads are bare, I mean, you can use anything from your normal running shoe to something that could be a little bit different. You might put a trail shoe on to have a little bit more traction. The sole on most kind of trail shoes have a little bit more kind of tread to them that would grip the ground a little bit better. Probably if there was a little bit of snow, that could be handy. If it starts to become icy or a surface that could be much more slippery, you probably want to use something that could be kind of like this that has kind of traction that's kind of built into it. So these are just little sheet metal screws that I've put in the bottom of this pair of shoes and add some traction. They also have some external stabilizers that do a very similar job to this that kind of strap over any kind of running shoe. And they can do the same type of thing, just provide some different traction so that if you are on that ice or slippery surface, that would be a good way to kind of stay afloat and not fall down. Putting screws in the shoes is a little bit tricky. You got to make sure that you put the screws kind of in an appropriate place. So the first thing that you need to watch out for is to make sure the depth of the screw is not going to penetrate the bottom of the shoe. You definitely don't want to screw in your foot. So one of the things that I do is I use a small screw, something that's not going to go too deep, and I put it in the areas that I'm going to contact more. So I put a little bit through the heel, but then I tend to be a little bit kind of heavier up front. Depending on the style that you're running and the way that you're running, that's going to play into kind of where those screws should go. When you're running in something that's really slushy, one of the things that kind of ends up, you're still going to have some of the slippery surface, but you also start to get a lot of splash kind of up off the roads. One of the things that you can wear is something like a running gaiter. So this is something that goes over your ankle, but also attaches to your shoe. So any kind of slush or anything that could be popping off the road and kind of going onto your pants, which could be getting them wet, something like this that could be waterproof would help to keep that off there. The other thing to be mindful of, if it is going to be slushy, using a shoe such as this that could be a Gore-Tex shoe, so your foot's not going to get as wet, so you step in a small kind of slushy puddle that would saturate kind of any other shoe. Something like this is going to keep that kind of water out of there. With the gaiter combination, it's going to keep the water off your pants as well. So the best socks to wear if you're going to be out and running in the snow or the kind of colder weathers, I mean, again, you want to have something that's probably not going to be a cotton-based sock. That cotton's going to get pretty wet from your sweat in the first couple minutes and it's going to stay wet. You want something that's going to be even like some kind of polyester blend or some kind of synthetic blend, possibly a wool sock that's going to allow that kind of sweat to kind of get away from the foot so that the foot can dry off a little bit better. Really important that when you're heading out for your run that you're doing an appropriate warm-up. You got to make sure that you transition yourself from the activity that you were doing before. If you get up from your desk and you've been sitting inside and it's 72 degrees at your workplace and you walk outside and it's 12 degrees, you need to make sure that you transition well there. One of the things that you can do is something as simple as doing some jumping jacks, light push-ups, run in place, things of that nature just to get your heart rate elevated. Another good kind of rule of practice is to do some dynamic stretching. light, kind of shorter holds, but going through some walking type stretches just to kind of loosen things up, elevate the heart rate before you step out the door to kind of get going. Once you're out the door, the key is transitioning in. Don't step out and start off at your fast kind of mile pace. Take the first mile or 2 miles if you're going to go for a couple and ease your way in. Make sure that you kind of transition, build yourself up, and then once you've got a nice little sweat going, you can actually kind of build into kind of what your run would be like. So when you're running in the winter, one of the things that can be hard as far as safety is the visibility. So you get up in the morning, the sun might not be coming up until 7 o'clock. A lot of people are running before the sunlight actually hits. So one of the things that you need to pay attention to is, one, for the runner themselves, being able to see. So using something such as a simple little headlamp to go on their head just so they can see their footing, making sure that they're not slipping as they're running. The other thing is we want anybody else to be able to see you. So if you are running on the roads, using some kind of reflective gear, they make vests to different straps to different kind of lights that you can put on yourself, as well as a lot of clothing now has in different type of reflective that's built into it that would help any pedestrian or motorist that could be kind of coming at you to be able to see you a little bit better. After you get back from your run, one of the things that you want to make sure that you do is once you have kind of everything down is do a nice little cool down. You want to make sure that you take that temperature from being elevated kind of outside to saying, how can I kind of get myself back towards kind of a resting state? Doing some light stretching, possibly a type of kind of soft tissue work such as foam rolling or stick work just to kind of loosen up the muscles can be really important. I think one of the other things that a lot of people forget in the winter is hydration. You go out and you run in the winter, you don't think about staying hydrated because it's not warm out. But in the winter, we can lose just as much fluid as we can in the summer. It's really important that you would still use the same hydration tips that you would in the summer, even when it's 10 degrees out. So some of the best places to run around here in the winter are trying to find some surfaces that could be cleared off. So one of the things that you can look at is some of the local tracks that people will run on those, and it'll kind of keep the snow kind of packed down a little bit. Some of the trails in the area will actually get packed down by different snowmobiles, so it might be a little bit slippery, but it could actually be fairly easy to kind of run in. As well as kind of Back Bay, kind of around Portland. Nice little trail, again, can get slippery kind of after they clear it off. They tend to keep it cleared pretty well, which works. And I think roads can be great. Roads are great options to kind of run in the winter, but again, you need to watch out for the different surfaces. If there was a little bit of ice buildup, or when the snowbanks kind of get higher towards the end of the winter, can you see around the corners? Are motorists able to kind of see you? Still becomes really important. If you start to find that you're having troubles on the road, they're not able to see you or you're not able to see them, other options are going inside. I mean, people can always kind of go to a treadmill and use something like that just to kind of get away from kind of the variables that could be outside that could create some kind of risk.